Earlier this year I reviewed and rated pretty highly the world's first mainstream TWS with solid state XMEMS driver technology. That was Creative's Aurvana Ace 2 and this is the Aurvana Ace Mimi. And if you're wondering why it isn't called the Aurvana Ace 3, it isn't really an upgrade of sorts, but it does have some notable advantages over its predecessor, all of which we're going to go through in this review. You're going to get to hear how they sound for yourself with a binaural sound sample that includes a comparison with that Mimi sound personalisation. You're going to hear how they perform on calls in the usual multitude of different busy real life locations. And you're going to get to hear a sample of the active noise cancellation in a busy coffee shop with comparisons to some of their similarly priced peers. But first, let's dive into the sound and try and understand exactly what Mimi means. Mimi are a development company building audio personalization solutions on behalf of their partners, which include the likes of Nothing, Beyerdynamic, Focal, and of course Creative. So you might have even used one of their services or products already. In short, they're basically the leaders when it comes to hearing tests, and they've built some software that their partners can integrate into their apps so that you, the user, can customize the sound based on how good your hearing is at different frequencies. That's exactly how Creative have implemented it, and you can find it in the personalization section of their app. It takes you through a 4-minute hearing test, which is recommended you do in a quiet place, and it involves you holding your finger down on a big circle and releasing it as soon as the frequency that they're playing is no longer audible. At the end, it generates a report for both your left and your right ear with a pretty useful visualization and explanation as to what they've actually done, and the option to play some music with and without the personalization so you can actually hear it for yourself. There's a slider bar to turn the intensity of the effect either up or down, and there's 3 presets as well to give you full control. You then can toggle the effect on and off in the main screen. I thought it made quite a major difference to the sound, but I'll let you be the judge of that with this binaural sound sample and comparison. As you heard there, a very good indication of what the Mimi are going to sound like, both with that personalization on and off. With the XMEMS drivers handling both the trebles and the mid-range, that's where the Mimi really shines. Both vocals and instruments have a good amount of clarity and brilliance. The transients are fast and snappy, so there's good instrument separation as well. And even with that boosted treble, it's more natural sounding than, say, if Creative had used a balanced armature driver instead. And while the bass is an improvement from the Aurvana Ace 2, it isn't quite as much of an improvement as I would have liked. They've thinned the mid bass out ever so slightly, and there is definitely an improvement there, but kick drums still lack a little bit of punch, and the bass tends to linger a little bit, which is at odds with the precision that you're getting with the mids and the trebles. Looking back at the Mimi personalization results, we can see that my hearing tends to get progressively worse as you're moving through the frequency spectrum up towards those higher frequencies, as you would expect from about 15 years of playing in clubs and festivals. The effect compensated for those shortcomings in my hearing perfectly. The result was a much better starting point from which to tweak the sound to my liking. It's worth remembering that this is purely generating a sound based on my hearing ability, not my hearing preference, so I'd still have to go into the EQ and tweak the sound to my liking. Fortunately, you've got lots of options here in the Creative app. Their 10-band custom EQ has points located quite favourably throughout the frequency range. plus or minus 9 dB gives you quite a bit of control too. Creative have once again included a ton of EQ presets for both music and gaming, and when you select one of those presets it gives you a visual representation of what it's actually doing to the sound, which I think is really helpful. The only slight disappointment when it comes to the MIMI personalization is that it stores the profile in the app rather than on the headphones. It's a limitation that Creative don't mention anywhere in their marketing material, and I found it out by accident when I went to measure the frequency response with personalization on my Windows PC and found it was exactly the same. So that's a little bit of a shame. But overall, this dual driver setup of an XMEMS handling the treble and the mids and a 10mm dynamic driver handling the bass sees them fare pretty well in the audio league table under 150 quid. It's only an incremental improvement over the Aurvana Ace 2 though. As I said, it would have been nice to have seen a different dynamic driver to give that bass a little bit more punch. Since the MIMI isn't using a Qualcomm chip, you don't have access to aptX lossless, instead it maxes out with LDAC. But I found myself generally using LC3 because unlike the Aurvana Ace 2, these are actually really stable and don't feel anything like as buggy. This also has the added benefit of ultra low latency, as low as something like 60 milliseconds, even without low latency mode activated, which then took it down to virtually zero. Multipoint also feels a little bit more stable than on the Aurvana Ace 2, although there's still no device list in the app. But that's pretty much where the improvements end, and it's a reason why I said in the intro you can't really consider these an upgrade. They've retained the IPX5 water and sweat resistance rating, which isn't really surprising when you consider that they don't seem to have changed the shell in any way, shape or form. This is a shallow insertion bud with a stem that is slightly longer than something like the Apple AirPods 2, and whilst the build quality isn't anything to write home about, they are pretty comfortable for everyday use. Controls on these buds aren't too bad either, and you do get a bit of customization as to what the gestures do in the app. Tap the custom buttons section on the main screen and you'll see you've got some control over double tap, triple tap and long tap. You can change the double and triple tap to pretty much everything other than volume. Meanwhile, with long tap, that's either volume control or nothing at all. Looking at the case design now, and it's quite well finished and reasonably portable as well. The hinge is a bit annoying though, sometimes slamming shut when you really don't want it to. They have upped their accessory game though, giving you a nice little drawstring bag and slightly improved ear tips that I felt made them stay in the ears a little bit better than the Aurvana Ace 2. For my ears at least, they withstood the rigours of putting them through cardio and HIIT, such as the 100 jumping jacks test here, which they passed with flying colours. They still support wireless charging, which is always good to see at any price point, and their battery life, an Achilles heel with the Aurvana Ace 2, has been improved slightly with an extra 45 minutes with ANC on, taking them to around 4 hours 50. The case gives you an additional 3 full charge cycles, but I did find that these are quite slow to charge and there's no quick charge feature either. The buds alone take around 60 minutes to charge. And unfortunately, active noise cancellation hasn't really improved either, and it's a little way behind some of Creative's competitors, as you'll hear in the following binaural sample.
ANC. Noise cancelling.
So as you heard there, a little bit of a disappointment in terms of that active noise cancellation strength, which is not only behind some of its peers as you heard, but it also falls a little way short of the Aurvana Ace 2 as well. That said, transparency mode does seem to be a little cleaner there's only a minor occlusion when you're talking. Most noises come through quite clear, so if you're having a conversation with a shopkeeper or a barista, as I was in this scene, then you should be able to make out every word. Finally, we're going to look at how the mic pickup sounds, with this being how it's going to sound in a quiet room. But really, we want to know what it's going to perform like when you're in busy real life scenes. And that's exactly what you're going to hear with a few clips here in different busy indoor and outdoor scenarios. And this time we're testing how the creative Aurvana Ace Mini are going to perform on your calls in a wet and windy outdoor scene when you're on the daily commute. Maybe you're walking to work, school, college, something like that, and you're battling with the sound of the conditions. Maybe it's traffic noises, splashing of the puddles when cars are coming by or buses are coming by. As you can see there, the noise of the engine, all of those things that can usually complicate your call. And this time we're testing the creative Aurvana Ace Mini and how they perform on your call in this very busy London Borough Market scene where you've got lots and lots of ambient noise, lots of indistinct chatter going on around me. You'll have to excuse the shakiness of the camera. As soon as you get the gimbal out here, the security are just onto you. So unfortunately, the things we have to go through just to get these tests. But yeah, interested to hear how the creative Aurvana Ace Mini performs. This time we're testing the creative Aurvana Ace Mini in a busy coffee shop. We've got the usual mixture of chatter and conversation that's going on nearby. The sounds of baristas making coffee in the background. And you've got music playing through the stereos, as well as the sound of crockery, clanging, and the theme is going off as well, right on cue. So if you're using these in a busy indoor scene, this is how you can expect the mic to perform. So as you heard there, a pretty decent performance when it comes to calls, whether it's indoor or outdoor. The noise reduction seems quite consistent. Your voice isn't the cleanest though, even when there's no noise going on in the scene. It did sound a little bit muffled, but perfectly coherent, so if you're using these to make or take a call in busy or quiet scenes, then they're going to get the job done. So looking at the Aurvana Ace Mini report card where we score them on their key sections, the sound is in that A tier because even though the dynamic driver's performance wasn't exceptional, I'm a huge fan of the XMEMS technology and I love that Creative have really pioneered with it. Meanwhile, the Mimi customization is useful, particularly if you've got some kind of hearing loss, which, if you're of a certain age, is an inevitability. Latency and connectivity are excellent. Build quality and call performance are fairly good, although not top tier. And active noise cancellation, a little bit of a disappointment overall. The Mimi do lack a few features I would have liked to have seen here, like wear detection sensors and quick charge. So do bear that in mind. What did you think of the Aurvana Mini? Leave your comments in the comments section below. Give the video a like if you found it useful, enjoyed it, both or neither, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you next time for reviews on the OnePlus Buds Pro 3 and KZ's Carol Pro. For now, it's ReganCipher signing off.